Welcome to Chamber Talk, the podcast brought to you by North Orange County Chamber. I'm your host, Andrew Gregson, and today we have a special episode. We're joined here by the City of Buena Park's City Manager, Aaron France, to discuss the important topic that will impact our future here in the community, which is Measure R, which is on the ballot for this upcoming election. Aaron is on his 19th year of service here in Buena Park, having held various roles since he first joined the city in 2005. In 2021, he was sworn in as a city manager, and an interesting fact about Aaron is he actually also is an alumni of Cal State Fullerton. Aaron, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me.
So I'm just going to go sort of straight into it. So if you've been serving Buena Park for nearly 2 decades now, so thank you for that. That's awesome. You're doing a great job. What are the things that you've witnessed regarding particular growth within the city over these past 2 decades?
Yeah, so our community is really growing in terms of, number of residents has changed, the demographic of our community and the makeup of our community has changed. But I would say that, for the better part of the last 15 years, our focus has really been on the corridor along Beach Boulevard. We'd really like to make some strides on that front. The old Movie Land Wax Museum property has been vacant for a little while. We've gone through some litigation there. But we'd really like to focus sort of on our entertainment corridor that supports Knott's Berry Farm and supports some of the other destinations that we have along Beach Boulevard.
And so as an example, are there some type of examples of who, you would love to have come into the city, or maybe even think about, hey, why not Buena Park?
I think there's a lot of interest in Buena Park. Obviously, having an anchor tenant like Knott's Berry Farm is huge. And I think, between Pirates and Medieval Times and Portos and the other things that we have along the boulevard, there's certainly no lack of interest in terms of, bringing folks to Buena Park. It's just finding that right fit. And of course, the economic cycle and interest rates are all affecting some of the things we're trying to do out there. We think we're moving past some of that, and then we think we've got some traction now. We've got some things planned or actually approved to move forward. But that big property on Beach Boulevard, we're still hopeful and working towards that great attraction that I think everyone will enjoy.
Oh, that's awesome. And with these growth and improvements, and then we're seeing obviously a lot here, what are some of the key challenges that you face as the city manager for the city itself?
Obviously, passing a balanced budget every year, public safety is a huge priority by our community, as it is in every community, quite frankly. It was really tough to sort of recruit and retain police officers for a while there, especially right after the pandemic. And so just kind of keeping up with infrastructure needs, whether that be parks or infrastructure in the ground, all of those, the roads and streets, maintenance of roads and streets that are, traveled so often here in Buena Park and throughout Southern California. Those are some of the things I think that are at the top of the list in terms of what we're trying to do. But, we don't create anything at Buena Park. We're a service organization. So, our goal is to make our, service to the community, whether that's the residents, the businesses, or the developers, as seamless and quick as possible.
Now, obviously, one of the reasons why we set this meeting up today is because we really would like to dive into the heart of what's today's conversation, which is about Measure R. And for those who might not be familiar with what Measure R really is, do you mind giving us a brief overlook of what we should be looking at, what we should understand about it?
Yeah, so... quick disclaimer, I'm not here to advocate one way or another on Measure R. I am here just to educate folks on what it's all about. There's a lot of information on our website, buenapark.com, so I'll start by mentioning that. But essentially what Measure R is our city council in July asked staff to put this measure on the ballot due to due to a need for a funding mechanism in Buena Park, a revenue mechanism. Certainly we have sales tax, we have property tax and TOT and a number of things that contribute to our general fund every year. But I think without a revenue stream to really grow Buena Park, whether it be the infrastructure in the ground, as I mentioned, growing our police department to keep up with the housing developments that are happening, or we have a water utility, and providing that service of water with keeping up with that infrastructure, street maintenance. Those dollars aren't going as far as they were 10 years ago. And it's getting tougher and tougher to sort of kind of tread water with all of it. And for us, in Buena Park, since really the Great Recession, we've had to sort of balance our budget on police vacancies and staff vacancies at City Hall. So we'd really like to get to a point where we're growing our especially our police and fire departments to keep up with the public safety needs. And in order to do that, we sort of need this revenue mechanism. And so what Measure R is a 1 cent sales tax measure. Our sales tax rate here in Buena Park is currently 7.75%, like it is in, I would say, about 2/3 of the county.
Okay. That's still quite low compared to the rest of Orange County, isn't it?
Yeah, there's about 10 cities that have already passed sales tax measures. And of course, next door in LA County, several cities have sales tax measures there. So ours is still quite low here in Buena Park, but we're looking at that 1% that would come directly to the city of Buena Park. It wouldn't be chopped up and serve other agencies, whether it's the county or the state. It would strictly come here to the city, and we will be able to utilize it for whatever the council makes as a priority.
And how this generally works, if I'm understanding it correctly, is it's basically just on when you purchase something within the city, right? So that doesn't mean it's just all down to everybody who lives here. That we're talking about, we have a lot of tourists coming into the city, so I'm assuming not everybody who lives here is going to be
right. So this has nothing to do with property tax. This is all sales tax, and everybody that comes to Buena Park would contribute to that as well. Initial estimates are that about 40% of our sales tax revenue comes from outside sources, people who are coming from outside the city, right? Because we have places like Knott's Berry Farm and whatnot. So yeah, it wouldn't be necessarily just the residents shouldering the load here. It would be anybody who visits Buena Park and buys or shops in Buena Park as well.
So in fact, unlike other cities, Buena Park's residents are going to enjoy the fact that they're not carrying the can for this. It's actually other people are coming in as well. Like I said, 40% is a large amount of money coming in, isn't it?
Yeah, it's shared, right?
Yeah.
But we're right in the middle of Halloween haunt right now, and if you look down Beach Boulevard on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night, you see the impact of visitors coming here, right? And so they would pay into that as well because they're contributing in road deterioration and all of those other things that are. We
have to pay the cost for, right? Yeah, it's only fair, isn't it? Really?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. So now that we understand a little bit about Measure R, if Measure R passes, how will it directly impact the city's infrastructure and services? And also, what types of improvements would you be looking at doing sort of like almost from the get-go?
Yeah. So right now we're building a new water well at Peak Park, for example, because of the service demand that we currently have and the new units coming to Buena Park. So for us to make projects like that possible, it really requires an earmark from a federal or a state legislator, or maybe a grant, right? And those aren't easy to come by, and they might be years in the making. So this would allow projects like that or street projects that maybe are put on the back burner because of limited dollars from gas tax or M2, whatever it might be. It would allow us to sort of expedite those projects and get them going quicker than we would have had we not had.
Rather than waiting and trying to get a grant, as you say, or something like that. Okay.
And the same could be said for, water and sewer infrastructure in the ground. As the community grows, the infrastructure needs to grow with it, right?
Yes, use more.
And so in order to make some of those large capital improvement projects happen, we would typically rely on an earmark from a federal or state legislator, or maybe saving, our pennies for several years in order to make that project happen. So, this would allow us to expedite some of that as well.
Now, over the last couple of days, because there's been lots of different things on, and there's some other measures for the school districts. I think it's Measure M here in Buena Park. Is it right in saying this is not like the school district's measure? Yeah,
so my understanding, and I don't know a lot about the school measure bond, but their bond, there's some matches at the state level that this bond will allow them to kind of, allow them access to some of this other grant funding at the state level that they otherwise might not be able to apply for or obtain. So ours is different. There's not sort of this match, although it might allow us to go after some grants that require some matching funds on the city side. But ours is a little bit different. Theirs is a bond. Ours is a sales tax measure. Ours, so just a little bit different in the mechanics there.
And do you, with obviously the world's changed a little bit, and we know that, California's tightening its belt with grants and programs and things like that. Obviously part of what you've done and your team do over at the city is you look for a lot of these different programs and grants where you're able to then, do better things within the city. Do you feel that moving forward over the next couple of years at least, as you're planning ahead, do you feel there's going to be less funding coming through those channels than maybe there were in the past? Yeah,
there's so many unknowns, right? Obviously we have a national election in a couple of weeks here, and who knows what direction that goes. And the state's really been tightening their belt a little bit due to some of their challenges with their budget. So naturally there's less money kind of trickling down to the locals for grant and earmark opportunities. I think it's really hard to say, but it's certainly kind of trending that way a little bit over the last couple years, where the earmarks have been a little bit smaller in nature, and the money coming down to the local level is sort of been reduced from maybe what it has in the past.
As you've shared a little bit about what would happen sort of almost immediately, let's be positive and say when Measure R, passes, what more long-term goals would we see as a community for the residents and also just generally for the city if that was to, then kick off and start working through?
So I think our city council and our elected officials would really like to dive into some projects that really our community can see, that they would be able to tangibly feel and benefit from. For example, and I use this example in the past, the air conditioning unit on one of our park clubhouses is going out, and we need to spend $40,000 to have it
renew it. Yeah, they're not cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. And quite frankly, it's the original unit on the roof, right, of that clubhouse that was built in the 1960s. So that means
like the school, you have to put it under the roof and then build a new roof on it as well.
Yeah. So, to go back to your original question, though, I think that, park projects, something that the community visits hopefully every week. Right. We would look to upgrade those, like similar to what you've seen at both Whitaker and Larwin in the past. We have some plans for some other parks in the city. Other things are more police officers on the street, right. Better response times, more patrol in the community. I think those are the types of things that our city council really wants our city to see the benefit of this measure should it pass.
And that's actually a really good point, is on a lot of people's minds, whether it's business owners or even residents, is security and safety is like really probably number one. Measure R, what does that actually physically do for Buena Park regarding the safety of the city.
Yeah. Policing in 2024, and I'm not a police chief, but, certainly have a great relationship with our chief. I know that we're doing a lot more in the way of surveillance and monitoring areas through, closed circuit cameras and that sort of thing. I think you'll see more of that. I think we'll utilize drones a little more in the future. I think we'd love to add maybe a couple of beats in the city that have dedicated officers patrolling those beats. So, increasing patrol staffing, and not just patrol, but other, areas of our police department as well. But, we recently conducted a Speak Up Buena Park survey in the community. We had over 2,000 responses, and that's, time and time again, what we're hearing from the citizenry is that they wanted, to address the burglaries and address car break-ins and to address, homelessness and all of the things that are at the top of everyone's list. And we heard that loud and clear. We had an assessment of our police department done recently as well, and we know that we could add some positions there that probably are very much needed. The number of officers hasn't changed in our police department for about 40 years. So as our community continues to grow, our police department needs to keep up with that.
So another thing, I suppose, really is, it's very easy to talk about all the good things that are going to happen, but we've got to face reality too. And you had a really good point explaining before about how the city at the moment, the way the revenue's going, it sort of just continues doing things that you do sort of almost every year in, year out.
Yeah.
However, Measure R is to help you do those other bits and pieces that are wearing and tearing infrastructure and things like that. So if Measure R were not to pass, what sort of effect would we see here in the community, or the residents or businesses or what have you?
Yeah, I think that, again, the way we've been trending over the last, I'd say, 10 to 12 years is that, passing a balanced budget has been a challenge. We've had to sort of, especially in hard times, keep those positions vacant that we'd really like to fill. So there is an impact from a service level perspective to the community, right? And maybe that, the response time to 911 calls, while it's still very good, isn't quite as good as what it could be.
So it could be better because you have more officers,
exactly,
right.
Exactly. Them covering a smaller region and then therefore their response to that location being quicker. But yeah, I think in general, should this measure not pass, again, will depend on some of those state and federal earmarks to get things done. And it just is, the rollout of capital improvement projects is slower. We're sort of band-aiding infrastructure as water mains break and sewer mains break, that sort of thing, as opposed to being more proactive in addressing some of those things. Street projects sort of are delayed more than we would like. We take pride in our roads and our pavement pavement condition index has sort of dropped lower than we would have liked over the last several years, and that's part of that is that our money just isn't going as far as it was in the past. Street projects are costing us a lot more and to do these days, and we just unfortunately wouldn't get to these things as quickly as we'd like.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding this correctly, if what I'm hearing is, you're able to, like you said before, keep things running, maintain the lifestyle that we're seeing today. Everything's getting more expensive anyway, right? So the cost of doing pavement, slabs, buying asphalt, and all the rest of the stuff gets expensive.
Right.
So I'm assuming that another part of this is rather than maybe patch and repair areas, you're thinking, well, if we had some of this Measure R money would be able to be put towards, let's say, we're able to actually do the whole street one go, get it finished, and then we're not patching and paving. Because a lot of cities around our area, they're struggling with that infrastructure.
Right.
And I suppose over time, it's going to be the same here. Is that way you look at it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that street, instead of just getting a slurry coat,
Right.
we're doing a complete rehab on the street,
Sure.
which is a much better driving experience for those coming through and the residents. We'd get to more neighborhood streets. And it's not just about streets. About, we talked about parks. We talked about infrastructure in the ground. We talked about a police department. We talked about turnaround. Well, we didn't talk about this, but turnaround time from the development world in terms of getting that plan checked, turned around quicker so they can get out and, develop in the community faster. So all of those things, everything that we do next door at City Hall.
Well, I appreciate you talking about Measure R, so we'll move on a little bit because we don't want to bore everybody with it.
Yep.
But at least those of you out there, you need to go and vote and read out about Measure R. And as Aaron mentioned before, you can go to Buena Park. Was it buenapark.com, isn't it?
Yep.
citybuenapark.com, isn't it? Is it
Nope,
website?
just buenapark.com. Yep.
And then you'll be able to actually read more about that. So there are also some pretty good things going on right now in the city. The city's got some initiatives going on. You want to share some that you're on the top of your head there without having to reach too far?
Yeah. So I talked about the water well we got going on. That's not so sexy, but we have a new hotel coming to Beach Boulevard, the Hilton Home 2 Suites project. We'll be breaking ground here shortly. I think you'll be hearing something in the next, couple of months about Beach Boulevard and particularly the Movie Land site. I think at some point you'll see something happen at Knott's Berry Farm in terms of, I don't think they're going to stay sort of stagnant over there. I think they'd like to really enhance the experience of the customer over there, or the patron over there. And then, we have a park project at Peak where we just redid a lot of our pools in terms of the shell and core of the pool. We'd really love to, and you're going to see this next year, expand the aquatic center over there, maybe a full rehab and renovation of the aquatic center over at Peak Park. Some run-of-the-mill projects around town that you might expect from local government. Some new playgrounds here and there.
Don't you have a plan for? Sorry for interrupting there. Don't you have a plan for electric vehicles or something? There was like some more power plant thing going on.
Yeah, so we do have a project that's going to get underway. We're going to add a lot of charging stations at one. That's a private development that's going to occur. We're bringing a Cadillac dealership to Auto Center Drive. We're very proud of the work the schools are doing. I think you're going to see us maybe partner with a school district on a project in the future as well, probably both districts. A lot of positive things happening. Again, we're trying to serve the community as best we can.
Now, obviously, we're here on Chamber Talk, and I know the city's very pro-business. You want to share about some incentives that are going on right now with the city for businesses, or things to do with business licenses and things like that? Yeah,
so a couple of things come to mind. We had a pilot program recently where we were working with another agency on one of the things we learned during the pandemic is some of these smaller businesses, the mom and pop types, they didn't have a presence online. So we were trying to really help them in terms of getting a website up and running and getting a presence online as big or as little as possible. Didn't matter. We really wanted to see. So we did a pilot program where we pledged some money from our economic development fund to go out and reach some of these small businesses and sort of help them with planning for or developing this online presence in the way of a website, just so people could find them, right? The yellow pages really don't exist anymore, and people are going straight to their phone in terms of where to find a place to eat or where to get their shoes, fixed or whatever it might be, right? And so It's really important these days to have that online presence. We certainly see the importance of that, and we're using some fundings through the city to help people establish that online presence. Right. The other thing I'll mention just real quick is we just kicked off a commercial facade improvement program for businesses to apply for money where the city will pay 75% of the improvement for their business. They only have to put up 25%. There's certainly a cap, I think, at $100,000 per application. But this would be to do aesthetic improvements, any infrastructural improvements needed, whatever that business might need in order to perform better or look better or attract more customers and clientele. We wanted to help them with it. So, they are the lifeblood of our communities, and we love to help them in any way we can. But if it's successful, we'll probably allocate more money.
And these programs, if you visit buenapark.com, you could find it underneath the economic development part of the business. Is that right?
Right. Go to our community and economic development department. There should be information about our commercial improvement facade program. Matt Folks heads up that department, and I think Melissa Dow in our economic development department can also answer some questions. You can call her at 714-562-3538 and learn more about it. Again, like you said, the website has plenty of information as well.
And those of you who have a business out there, if you don't have a website, it's really important. Last year, the Chamber had over 500,000 visits to its business directory, and that is really the yellow pages of the world now. The only thing with the Chamber is a member-driven organization. So if you're not a member, you're not on there, but we give every single member a landing page, so you have some type of web presence. So I really do like that, and you're very right. In fact, to be honest, if you're looking to get loans or apply for certain programs as a business, if you don't have a website, you actually 9 times out of 10 they won't even look at you because they don't think you're legitimate anymore.
Right.
Another thing you mentioned, that we didn't mention, and it is on our website too. If you go to our website, you can actually look under the cities, and it gives you a direct link to getting business license and things. What's going on with that? Because obviously that sometimes put people off, and I know you don't have much of a waiting time here in Buena Park, do we?
The business license program is conducted or spearheaded through our finance department. We've toyed around with some different third-party consultants to kind of help us with that. Our lead time to turn that around is pretty quick. Same with our plan check services. We're very proud of that. I think we're trending at about 12 to 14 days right now in terms of turning around plan check for developers. But yeah, we certainly, that's our job, is to deliver the most efficient service we can to the community, whether it's at residents, developers, or business owners. Just today I talked to a council member about an ABC license that they were trying to get, and we were trying to turn that around at an expedited pace for them, because really it's keeping them from kind of capturing that crowd, that evening crowd with dinner, that the ABC license allows them to bring in beer and wine and certainly attract that different patron into their establishment.
Now, you touched on something a moment ago, and I'm not going to harp on about it because I think you've given us enough information regarding the business. But one of the things we often get from members is, they get frustrated when they're going through the planning stage and things like that. And whilst I have the city manager in front of me, why don't you share with us from your side what you see are the obstacles sometimes? Because we often see that sometimes somebody hired the wrong person to send in the plans, and that's put a stop hold on. But of course, you really see that side of world. Do you want to share with some of our listeners about what happens there and the struggles and how to get around it?
Yeah, I'll do my best to kind of, simplify this. Our community development director can probably give a better assessment, but I'll do my best here. When a developer has a team around them in order to get their product or establishment going, it's really important that you have a good team. A good architect, a good contractor, is critical in order for it to be a smooth, seamless, process through the city's plan check department, and billing department. And so that's critical. What we're seeing a little bit here is there occasionally can be a language barrier between the developer and or maybe some of the professionals they've hired and our staff. So we're working through some of those challenges. But I would say to any developer or business owner out there, you will be assigned a planner to your particular project. Please communicate back and forth with that planner, religiously. Don't wait for them to reach out. If you have a question, pose it to them immediately. Show up at our counter and talk to them. But sometimes we find that there's a sort of like delay. And more often than not, it's like, well, they were each waiting. They were pointing fingers at each other, like, well, wait, we're waiting from this from the city. No, we're waiting from this from the
developer or whoever.
Yeah,
right.
And so, if you're not sure, ask. That way, we can make sure that, because a lot of times our planner will have a number of projects on their desk, and so that individual attention to that project a lot of times isn't given like we'd like, and so it's important for that developer to reach out if you're unsure of where the onus is in terms of next move.
And that wasn't rehearsed, by the way. And it's funny you say that, because all our cities, that is one of the major things we always end up finding, is that the owner of the business is obviously sort of waiting or being led by the developer or whoever's doing the plans, because sometimes they're not the right people to get the plans.
Yep.
And 9 times out of 10, when we've reached out to whoever we're reaching out to the cities, that's the problem, is they were waiting for the communication and nobody did, and they never left. And I think that's great advice, that if you really want to find out what's going on, even if you just had a meeting with your developer and your architect, by all means, feel free to call the city and they'll be able to give you an up-to-speed date of what's going on with your plans. I like that idea. I think it's very smart.
Yeah, be proactive in terms of getting your project done. Reach out, ask questions, see, are we waiting for this? Am I waiting on you, or are you waiting on me? That kind of thing, because a lot of times it's sort of we're in this sort of standoff position where
and time just ticks by, and that costs really evidently the owner, because they're probably still paying for rent or whatever, or the mortgage or whatever it is, and they're just wasting money there, aren't they, at that time? And, we always give every guest that comes on our show time, just like a free mic time. They share whatever they want to share. And, today's episode's a little bit shorter and brief, just due to time and everything else that's going on. So have you got any final words for anyone, residents, kind ones, of course, for residents or businesses alike?
Yeah, we have a great auto mall. We would definitely encourage people to come if you're interested in a new vehicle. I know interest rates are dropping somewhat. Come see one of our auto dealers. We have a great selection of different manufacturers here in Buena Park. Knott's Berry Farm is sort of wrapping up haunt here in the next week or so, but we're moving right into the holiday season, and I know they've got some plans for the holidays. We've got some exciting residential projects that are on the horizon. So we're going to add a lot new residents to Buena Park. Wow. There's a lot of new home ownership opportunities for people that might be renting right now that are looking for a home. So we're excited about being able to offer that to the community. And then, some new dining establishments. We are proud of some of the new ones that are popping up in the city, and we look to bring more options for the city, because we know that that's something that they're clamoring for as well.
Well, that's awesome, Aaron. Thank you so very much for sharing all that today. And thank you for coming on and sharing a little bit more about Measure R. Hopefully for folks out there, it's very important this year. It's important every time, really, but it's very important to go out and vote. And don't just look at your politics, look at your policies, and more importantly, look at what's close to your home. For those of you who'd like to learn more about our episodes, visit nocchamber.com and click podcast at the top of the page. I do apologise for my voice today. I do have a bit of a cold, so thank you very much. Sorry about that. And Aaron, thanks a lot for coming on today.
Andrew, thanks for having me.